The doors of the Aurelius Prime Senate Hall slid apart with a low metallic sigh, revealing a corridor of floating lanterns and banners that shimmered in soft, gold light. Sergeant Orion Hale stepped through them without breaking stride. His boots struck the polished obsidian floor with a steady, unhurried rhythm. He wore no armor, carried no weapons, and displayed nothing except the quiet confidence etched into his posture. Across the hall, hundreds of senators filled their tiers, scaled creatures, crystalline organisms, towering avians, and serpentine diplomats coiled around levitating podiums. Their colors pulsed like constellations scattered through a cathedral. Yet the moment the human walked in, the vibrant display shifted to curiosity, then amusement. A ripple of laughter moved across the chamber. "There he is!" someone muttered, voice echoing through a translation array. "The primitive! A soldier of Earth!" Another scoffed. "Do they always send such plain creatures?" Orion ignored them and continued toward the central platform. Behind him, Earth's delegation trailed in stiff silence. Ambassador Rhea Calder kept pace beside him, shoulders rigid beneath her formal dark robe. She leaned slightly toward him and whispered, "They want a reaction. Don't give them one." "I wasn't planning to," he murmured. When they reached the platform's emerald circle, a column of light rose around them, formal acknowledgement of their presence. The Senate's presiding figure glided forward from his throne, suspended on an anti-gravity dais carved from something that resembled molten steel. High Senator Zalvor. Tall, sharp-jawed, for eyes glowing amber, and adorned in a mantle woven from metallic fibers that shimmered like a living storm, he radiated superiority. His smirk deepened when his gaze fell on Orion. "Representatives of Earth," Zalvor announced, voice amplified to every corner of the vast hall. "You arrived seeking a seat on the Defense Council. Yet you bring us this." His hand swept toward Orion as though presenting a circus display. Laughter erupted again. Orion stood motionless. Ambassador Calder stepped forward. "Sergeant Hale represents the elite of our military forces and carries 15 years of—" "A relic," Zalvor cut in. "A soldier trained with bullets, blades, and explosions. How quaint." He tilted his head as if examining an exotic pet. "Tell me, Sergeant, do you still rely on fire to propel metal objects?" "The tools don't matter," Orion said calmly. "Only the person using them." A few senators shifted, surprised by the human's unwavering tone. Zalvor clicked his tongue. "Such confidence. Yet your world is barely 3 centuries into interstellar travel. You expect us to believe your kind is prepared to contribute to galactic security?" Rhea started to answer, but Orion gently lifted a hand. She stopped. "We didn't come for approval," he said. "We came to show you what we are capable of." A hush followed, brief but sharp. Zalvor's amusement vanished. "Oh?" His eyes narrowed. "Then let us test that claim." The chamber dimmed. A series of heavy metallic thuds echoed behind the senators as a gate along the arena wall opened. A towering silhouette emerged, its footsteps shaking the platform. The creature stepped into the light, 8 feet of armored muscle, dense crimson hide, and tusks gleaming like polished stone. A Karnak war-beast gladiator. Several senators recoiled, muttering nervously. Karnak served as elite shock troops across the frontier. Even armed guards rarely approached them without protection. Ambassador Calder's breath hitched. "This wasn't part of the agenda." Zalvor smiled. "A simple demonstration. Your Marine will face the Karnak for 2 minutes. Survive, and perhaps we will reconsider your petition. Refuse, and Earth forfeits its claim." "You want a public execution," Rhea said sharply. The senator shrugged. "If your species is as capable as you boast, there's no danger." The gladiator stepped forward, breathing like a furnace, fists crackling with subdermal energy implants. He stared at Orion as though already imagining how to break him. Orion met his gaze without blinking. One of the avian senators flapped his wings nervously. "Is this necessary, Zalvor? The Karnak has killed trained soldiers of 3-star nations." "That is precisely why it is necessary," Zalvor replied, voice smooth. "We must evaluate Earth's so-called Marines." Orion rolled his shoulders once, loosening the tension around his neck. He turned to Rhea. "Ambassador, permission to engage." "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "They want to humiliate us. They're expecting me to flinch," he said softly. "I don't intend to." Her jaw clenched. She gave a reluctant nod. Zalvor raised a hand, signaling the Senate's combat shields to activate. A translucent barrier surrounded the central area with a subdued hum. "Sergeant Hale," Zalvor declared, "your trial begins now." The Karnak lowered his stance, muscles knotting beneath his thick skin. His tusks gleamed as he bared his teeth in anticipation. Orion stepped forward, calm as still water. "Before we start," he said, voice carrying through the chamber, "I want to make one thing clear." The Senate leaned in. "I'm not here to entertain you," he continued. "I'm here because you doubt my world's strength. So let's remove the doubt." A murmur spread through the tiers, uncertainty replacing mockery. The Karnak growled, slamming one fist into his palm. Zalvor gestured impatiently. "Begin." Silence swept through the hall. For a heartbeat, neither Orion nor the gladiator moved. The tension felt like a taut wire straining against its limits. Then the Karnak roared and launched himself forward with shocking speed for his size. His bulk cut through the air like a missile, every step rattling the Senate's ancient floor. Several senators gasped. One even covered her eyes. But Orion didn't flinch. He watched the creature approach, reading angles and momentum, tracking the shift of muscle beneath the warbeast's hide. Rhea whispered, "Please don't die." At the last possible instant, Orion pivoted aside. The Karnak's swipe carved through empty space, the force of it generating a gust strong enough to lift loose papers from the ambassador's podium. Orion slid into a low stance, weight balanced, hands open. The move wasn't flashy, just efficient. Controlled. Deliberate. A ripple of surprise passed through the chamber. The Karnak snarled and spun, preparing another assault. Orion's gaze never left him. High Senator Zalvor leaned forward, frown deepening. "Interesting." Orion straightened slowly, eyes locked on the warbeast. His voice carried across the stunned hall, cold, level, unwavering. "Round 1, he said. "Whenever you're ready." A hush fell so deep not even the translators dared to speak. The Senate, moments ago filled with laughter, now watched in breathless silence. The fight had truly begun. The Karnak didn't wait. The moment Orion settled into his stance, the creature lunged again, this time lower, faster, trying to smash him into the floor. The Senate shield flickered as the warbeast's footfalls vibrated through the arena. His roar echoed across the chamber like a thunderclap. Orion stepped aside by a margin so thin it felt like defying gravity. The Karnak's charge blasted past him, skidding across the polished surface, claws grinding sparks. Orion didn't attack. He watched. Studied. Every motion of the creature's shoulders, the twitch of its neck, the way its knees compressed before a strike. Ambassador Calder exhaled shakily behind the barrier. "How is he reading that thing?" "He's watching its center of gravity," a nearby senator murmured, surprised by his own admission. "Humans, you learn fast." The Karnak twisted with a frustrated snarl and swung a heavy fist toward Orion's head. The blow would have caved in a steel panel. Orion ducked and drove his palm into a pressure point beneath the creature's ribs. The impact didn't injure the Karnak, but it shifted his momentum just enough to knock him off balance. A pulse of shocked murmurs rippled around the chamber. Orion kept moving, not giving the creature time to adapt. He stepped behind the Karnak as it stumbled, planting one foot firmly and striking the back of its knee. The giant dropped for a split second, surprised that a smaller opponent could manipulate its stance. The Karnak whipped around with a backhand so violent the air snapped. Orion bent backward, spine arcing just enough for the massive arm to slice inches above him. As the strike passed, he kicked upward into the beast's forearm, redirecting the follow-through. The maneuver turned the Karnak's own force against him, sending the brute crashing into the barrier with a crack that made several senators flinch. The shield flared bright red before stabilizing. Zalvor rose from his seat baffled. "Impossible," That creature outweighs him by over 300 kilos. He's not trying to overpower him, Rhea said, voice steadying as realization dawned. He's using leverage. The Karnak pushed off the barrier and charged again, fury building with every breath. This time he didn't roar. He stalked forward, deliberate now, watching Orion's feet. The creature had finally realized brute strength wouldn't be enough. Orion nodded once, approving the shift in tactics. Good, he murmured. Now you're thinking. The Karnak sprang. Orion met him halfway, sliding under the creature's reach, hooking an arm around its elbow. With a sharp pivot and a twist of his hips, he redirected the monster's entire upper body. The maneuver sent the Karnak tumbling across the floor, armored hide skidding. Gasps exploded from multiple tiers of the Senate. A crystalline senator whispered, "Humans shouldn't move like that. Their physiology isn't built for that torque." "Maybe yours isn't," someone replied. The Karnak rose, chest heaving, tusks grinding together. He flexed his claws. Blue light flickered beneath his skin, energy implants. Orion noted it instantly. "Hidden augmentations," he said quietly. Rhea slammed her hand against the console. "Zalvor! The Karnak is using unauthorized enhancements." The High Senator feigned confusion. "Perhaps his species evolved since the last combat record." His smirk betrayed the lie. Orion didn't complain. He simply raised his hands again. The Karnak lunged with electrified claws. Sparks burst as he slashed at Orion's chest. Orion sidestepped, feeling the heat skim inches from him. The creature struck again, faster, more precise. Orion blocked the next swipe with the edge of his forearm, redirecting it away from his torso. Electricity crackled across his sleeve but didn't slow him. He moved in a continuous flow, never pausing longer than a heartbeat. Each dodge brought him closer. Each step set the next counter. The Karnak swung wildly now, strength amplified by fury and fear. Orion ducked beneath a sweeping strike and drove his elbow into the creature's throat. The blows staggered the Karnak, making its implants flicker. A collective recoil swept the Senate as the warbeast stumbled backward, choking. Orion didn't press. He circled, analyzing the stagger, the angle of the limbs, the creature's deteriorating coordination. "Your implants are overheating," he said. "You're losing power in your left arm." The Karnak blinked, stunned that the human noticed. Zalvor slammed a fist into his throne. "Fight, you brute! Crush him!" The Karnak obeyed, lunging in a desperate rush. Orion sprinted forward, not away, meeting him head-on. The chamber held its breath. Orion slid low at the last second, planted one foot, and twisted. His shoulder struck the beast's sternum, while his arm hooked behind its knee. The momentum flipped the massive creature onto its back, the impact shaking the entire hall. The barrier flickered again. Rhea whispered, "He's actually doing it." Orion stepped back as the Karnak struggled to rise. He didn't taunt. Didn't brag. He simply waited, hands open, breathing steady. Sweat trickled down his neck, but his gaze never wavered. The Karnak roared and swung wildly. Orion slipped past the strike, grabbed the creature's wrist, and twisted. Bone cracked with a sharp, sickening sound. The warbeast howled. Orion's other arm locked around its throat. With a controlled pivot, he drove the creature to the floor and pinned it, one knee on its chest, one arm compressing its airway, the other holding the broken wrist immobile. The entire maneuver lasted less than 2 seconds. Silence swallowed the Senate. The Karnak thrashed once, then stilled. Energy implants dimmed to a faint glow. Its breath rasped weakly beneath Orion's hold. Zalvor stared, horrified. "Release him! The challenge is complete!" Orion leaned close enough for the creature to hear him. "You fought well," he said quietly. "Rest." He rose and stepped back. The Karnak collapsed, unconscious. Medical drones swept in, surrounding the fallen warrior. All eyes turned to the human. Orion scanned the stunned faces lining the chamber. Senators who had mocked him now stood paralyzed. Delegates who had dismissed Earth struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. He rolled his shoulders once, loosening stiff muscles. 2 minutes are up. His gaze locked on Zalvor. Do you want to send someone else? Or was that demonstration enough? The hall remained dead silent. Even the translation nodes paused, unsure if they had misheard. Orion stood alone in the center of the arena, calm, unharmed, unshaken. The primitive had silenced the galaxy. The chamber remained frozen for several long seconds. The only sound came from the medical drones tending to the unconscious Karnak. A moment earlier the hall had been a theater of mockery. Now it felt like a tomb, quiet, watchful, unsure how to breathe. Orion stood in the center, breathing steadily, hands loose at his sides. He wasn't triumphant. He wasn't gloating. He simply existed in a space that moments ago had tried to erase him. Ambassador Calder stepped forward, her voice cutting through the stillness. High Senator Zalvor, Earth has fulfilled your challenge. According to the bylaws of this council, you are now required to recognize our military capability and submit the vote for Defense Council inclusion. Zalvor said nothing. He remained rigid, fingers gripping the edges of his dais. His amber eyes darted from Orion to the silent senators, searching for support that no longer existed. A small, three-eyed diplomat in the upper rows spoke first. The humans survived the full duration. More than survived, dominated. The result is undeniable. Another senator joined in. The Karnak is one of the strongest species represented here. If the human can neutralize him with no armor, that cannot be ignored. Zalvor finally found his voice. Strength alone is not proof of strategic value. Perhaps the creature was weakened. Or poorly trained. A crystalline delegate snapped. The gladiator is a champion of his clan. You hand-selected him. If your chosen warrior fails, that is not our concern. Dozens of murmured agreements followed. Orion didn't move, but his presence continued to pull the room into alignment around him. He let the senators argue, allowed the weight of what happened to settle into their minds. Rhea stepped closer to Zalvor, her tone sharpening. Your attempt to humiliate us failed. Now honor the rules you claim to uphold. Zalvor glared at her, then at the recovering Karnak. The creature was conscious again, but barely able to lift its head. Even in its weakened state, the warrior raised a trembling hand toward Orion, a gesture of reluctant respect. That single motion silenced every remaining whisper. Orion gave the Karnak a subtle nod. Zalvor's composure cracked. This is absurd. Humans rely on brute instinct and reckless aggression. That is not discipline, it is barbarism. Orion finally spoke. If that's what you saw, Senator, then you weren't watching. The entire chamber shifted toward him. He stepped onto the center platform, movements smooth, voice steady. Humanity doesn't survive because we're brutal. We survive because we adapt. We learn. We commit. Every world we settled tried to break us. Every war we fought forced us to evolve. We didn't rise because we were the strongest. We rose because we refused to bow. His words hung in the air, quiet, but heavy with lived truth. Strength isn't chaos, he continued. It's discipline. Every motion I made here was practiced thousands of times. Not to destroy opponents, but to protect the people who rely on me. That's what a Marine is. That's what Earth offers. A soft rustle moved through the tears. Respect. Not out of fear, but recognition. Zalvor tried to interrupt. Enough of these speeches. A senator from the avian delegation cut him off. No. We've heard enough from you. This chamber witnessed something extraordinary today. The human displayed control beyond anything we anticipated. Another followed. Earth's forces could provide significant strategic advantage if war breaks out on the frontier. Zalvor's jaw tightened. War is not guaranteed. Then why summon this council at all? A mechanical-voiced representative asked. You warned us of hostile fleets nearing the Helion corridor. Zalvor said nothing. The political tide had turned. Rhea pressed the advantage. Put the matter to vote. A holographic panel appeared above the center of the chamber. Each senator's crest lit up. One by one, the symbols glowed either green or red. Green, green, another green. Senator after senator voted in favor. Even species who had mocked Earth earlier now pressed their approval. Salvor watched helplessly. When his own crest lit last, he hesitated, knowing the decision was already made without him. Rhea folded her arms. Protocol, High Senator. Salvor pressed red, jaw clenched in bitter defeat. The final tally displayed. Earth approved. Defense Council seat granted. A wave of murmurs rolled through the chamber, some surprised, others relieved. But the loudest impression was one of acceptance. Rhea let out a slow breath, shoulders finally relaxing. Sergeant, she whispered, you changed our fate today. Orion kept his eyes on the senators. The work isn't done yet. The medical drones carried the Karnak toward the infirmary. As they passed, the warrior looked at Orion with a quiet intensity. His deep voice cracked but clear enough. Human, worthy. Orion nodded once. You as well. The Karnak closed his eyes, reassured. Salvor stepped down from his dais and approached the human with forced dignity. Your display has swayed them, he said through clenched teeth. But don't assume this means Earth will rise unchecked. Power must still be earned. Then we'll earn it, Orion replied. Salvor leaned closer, voice dropping. You embarrass me. That won't be forgotten. That makes two of us, Orion said softly. You tried to kill me for politics. The High Senator stiffened, unable to answer. Rhea stepped between them. This conversation is over. Salvor retreated without another word. As the chamber began to empty, ambassadors and military figures from across the galaxy approached Orion. Some offered greetings, others extended invitations for joint training. No one laughed. No one dismissed him. They spoke to him the way warriors spoke to warriors. When the delegations finally dispersed, Rhea and Orion walked toward the exit corridor. The hall behind them buzzed with new calculations, alliances forming, strategies shifting. You realize they'll study today for decades, Rhea said quietly. Humans aren't invisible anymore. We never were, Orion said. They just weren't looking. They reached the towering doors. The same lantern-lit passage that had mocked his arrival now felt changed, its silence thoughtful instead of hostile. Rhea paused before stepping through. Sergeant, thank you. Earth needed this. Orion looked back at the Senate one last time. The chamber that had laughed now stood in humbled quiet. Earth didn't need a victory, he said. It needed clarity. And it got it. He turned away, boots echoing across the long corridor. For the first time in its history, the galaxy understood something fundamental. Humanity didn't ask for respect. It earned it. And after today, no one dared laugh again.